Hello beautiful, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video where we are going to talk about, I think it is 12 different eyeshadow palettes with actually interesting color stories. A little bit different, not redundant, not monochromatic, not like predictable, just something different and fun. And I'm going to show you swatches and we're just going to dive into fun eyeshadow palettes. I love watching videos like this myself and I hope that you will enjoy this video. And if you haven't been here before, do consider subscribing because I do upload quite a lot of videos every week all about makeup and beauty. And I saw two of my friends did this video and they were mentioning that they were inspired by me, so I will leave those videos down below. And I was thinking, oh, should I film that video again? Because I like doing this video. I've done this before. This is the third time that I'm filming a similar video to this on my channel. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it again because I just did it. But then I went back and I looked and the just did it was actually September of 2020. So yeah, time flies when you're in a pandemic. So we're definitely diving into it today. I did film this look. I filmed it for my member exclusive tutorials. I do have a membership here on my channel and you can check that out on the button next to my subscription button. There are a slew of member exclusive tutorials available right now for members. You also get a little icon next to your name showing that you are part of the Happy Clown squad, and you also get access to member exclusive emojis that you can use in my comments. And it is also just an extra way to be supporting my channel if that is something you want to do. For tier 3 and tier 4, I do a member exclusive Zoom call where we just hang out and chat once a month. And I did film this look for this month. And I did use one of the palettes that is in this video, so I thought it would be super appropriate for me to film this video now going in. I will link all of these palettes down below. I don't know if all of these palettes are available, but I am fairly sure, 99.9% sure that these are at least not discontinued. So check my description box down below if you want to see where these are available. I do have codes with some of these palettes. I will let you know which ones and I will put that down below as well. But my code is going to be Angelica with all of the palettes or all of the brands here that I do have a code with. Some, of course, I don't. Let's actually start them with the one that I'm having on my eyes. This is the Serenity palette by Cosmic Brushes. This is one of the palettes I have on my eyes. I also have their new palette, the Muse palette, on my eyes. And I wanted to bring this one in, not only because it is great quality, but also because this is such an intriguing and interesting color story that brings a little bit of everything. This is a palette that has quite a few shades. This is 20 different shades, but it's not redundant. It is not one of those palettes where it's like, why did you put this shade in here? Like this shade wasn't needed. This is a curated color story at the same time as it is something that is just giving you a bunch of different options where you can go in a million different directions. I've used this palette so many times on my channel, and this is one of the brands that I do have a code with. This palette and the other Muse palette, it tends to sell out a bit, but she is restocking them. I don't think either of these are limited edition. And this palette I also mentioned in my 2022 palette ranking as my favorite palette that released last year. So I just think that this is such a fun and beautiful palette, and there are so many different shades. Like I said, most of these shades are from this palette. Two of the shades, the lip shade here and the pink, is from the Muse palette. I just think that this is a really fun and interesting palette, and this palette got a lot of hype for good reason. I just think this is so much fun. I want to mention a neutral palette. I'm not normally the person that goes gaga over neutrals, but at the same time, sometimes I see neutrals done just so well in a way that just inspires. And I feel like this one, the All Done Up palette by Nomad Cosmetics, definitely is that, because this is a palette that really appeals to a color lover, which is me, plus a neutral lover, because I've seen so many neutral lovers say that this palette is just the bee's knees. You have a cool tone row with white and gray and black and silver, and then like a sagey green, a mustardy row, a more bricky red with a pastel paint, and then you just have this brown row here as well. And this one is actually a duochrome iridescent green shimmer. There's so many things that you can do with this palette. You can go everyday neutral, you can go bright and bold. Like there's so many ways that you can go with this one. And since you have this contrast here as well, you can go super dramatic with this if you want to, or a little bit more on the easy side. If you love neutrals and if you want to inject something fun to your neutrals without buying colorful eyeshadows, I definitely recommend this palette by Nomad Cosmetics. I think she did a great job with this one. And this palette is also one of the palettes that I have a code with. I will link it down below. Now let's talk about a palette that was my favorite palette of 2021, and I still think that the Passion in Paris by BH Cosmetics is a wonderful palette with a wonderful color story. Here you get some cool tone neutrals mixed with some purples, some blues, and some blurples, which is like blues and purples where they meet, and then some cool tone burgundies here at the bottom as well. This palette goes from really light to really dark, and the quality of these BH Cosmetics shadows, like, they're incredible. They're not good for the price. They're not good for being in the drugstore. These are great quality shadows, and BH Cosmetics, since they got bought by Makeup Revolution, you can find them in way many more places, and they did restock this palette, so I will link it down below. Another palette that I really love from a brand that I really love is Odins Eye, and they just recently did a restock, this Solmåne 2. This one got sold out for obvious reasons. This is a beautiful and fun twist on a rainbow palette, because that's not a straight up rainbow palette. It does have like yellow and purple and blue, and it's just not a typical rainbow palette. There's no reds in here, but you have like an orange color instead. It goes from really dark, there is a black and a dark blue and a dark purple, and it goes to really light. You have two pastels here and some really light shimmers, and then you have some really fiery midtones and some more cool tone muted midtones, bunch of shimmers. I think there are two duochromes in here if I'm not mistaken, or is it one duochrome and one topper maybe? I just really like this palette, and I love the variety that this palette gives, and I also love that these colors are not primary colors, so they do go very well together with neutrals if you just want to inject a little bit of color but you're afraid to make stuff a little bit muddy. I just think that this is a beautiful palette. I love how this one has been just thought out. I love the packaging of it, and I really love the Odins Eye quality. This is not news to anyone. Like, I chose to work with Odins Eye for a reason, because I really love the quality, and this is also a brand that I do have a code with, and they just recently restocked this one, and I hope they didn't sell it out again, or maybe if they did, maybe that's a good thing as well, because even more people get to enjoy this really beautiful and fun palette. Here's the thing. I'm starting in the wrong end of this story. I just started in the middle of it. Natasha Denona has a way of telling people that stuff is like last chance before it's gone, but it's never gone. Nothing is ever gone. So every time you hear me say that a Natasha Denona palette has been discontinued, it is because Natasha Denona's Instagram says that it's like being discontinued, but it never is. It never is. Everything comes back. Nothing of Natasha Denona seemed to be discontinued. If you cannot find it at Sephora or Beautylish or wherever you're shopping Natasha Denona, you can always find it at her website. I have no idea why she keeps saying things are disappearing when it's not. So one of my favorite palettes from Natasha Denona is the original Love palette. This is the Midi Love palette, and this one was supposedly disappearing, but now it's back on her site. Don't shoot the messenger, but I do love this palette. I think this is a beautiful palette, and this is one of those, one of my favorite color combos is pink with red. I think it's wonderful. You have a pastel pink, you have some reds, and what I really like about this palette is that it is a little bit more muted. This is like red and pink, but make it mainstream. Because it is not like primary red or like bright like in fuchsia pink. It is a little bit muted. There is a little bit more leaning on some like golds and burgundies. There's also this very, very dark plum cream to powder. I love the cream to powder formula from Natasha Denona. I think it's beautiful. There is like one of these more natural like bone colored matte that people seem to love. I just think that this is a red and pink color story made in a way so that more people can appreciate it. And like I said, I think this one is back at Natasha Denona. I will link it down below, but I think this is a beautiful palette, and I think that there are so many fun things you can do with this palette. I've done so many looks with this palette. I absolutely love it. I tried to go in with this not mentioning more than one like palette from each brand, because we all have different favorites, and we all have different favorite brands, and brands that are easier for us to shop from and versus not. So when I came to Colourpop, there's actually quite a few Colourpop palettes that I could have been recommending, but I chose to recommend this one. It's called In the Springs. Honestly, I don't even know if this is available on the Colourpop website, but I'm just letting you know about this one because I feel like sometimes we really do be sleeping on the Colourpop palettes that are not collabs. And this is not a collab palette. This was, I think this was the summer collection of last year, and I put this really high in my palette ranking of last year. I think this is such a beautiful palette. This is a mix of orange, turquoise, and neutrally browns and champagnes, and I think they did a good job with this palette. It has two really dark shadows, it has two really light shadows. Both of these can be used as inner corner. This pastel-y turquoise is just absolutely wonderful. There are some really nice shimmer and mid-tone crease colors, and this really pretty, this is one of those mattes that has shimmer in it. It is called Get Aerial, and it is an orange with lots of gold sparkles. And if you put these two in the crease and this one on the lid, you will have such a beautiful, sultry, warm summer look. It will be so beautiful. I love this palette. I think this palette is beautiful, and I've had so much fun with this palette. And I feel like this was one of those palettes that I think people slept on it because, first of all, Colourpop released so many products, but they also released so many collabs, and those usually tend to get a little bit more hype than the collections in between. But don't sleep on the collections in between because they can be really, really amazing. And I do have a code with Colourpop as well. Again, everything will be down below. So I always try to try out the things that are being released from Colourpop that are not like the collab things as well, because sometimes they be having some really good hidden gems within there, like this palette that I think deserved way more hype than it did. This is the Lure palette by Nomad Cosmetics. This is a 9-pan palette with 4 mattes and 5 shimmers, and I just think that this is so well done. These colors just go together, and these colors are so smart because you can use 2 of these shadows and make an incredible look. These are all duochrome shimmers. Absolutely beautiful. You can go warm, you can go cooler, you can go brighter, you can go neutral. You have the black one to deepen this up with, and all of these mattes go together, and depending which ones you mix, they will give you a different result in the crease. And I just really love this palette. I love this quality. You can go warmer or greener or pinker. I really like it. The only thing that this palette doesn't have, I mean, it's a 9-pan, is a matte inner corner highlight for me, because I love that, but again, it's not that hard for me to reach into. I just think that this is such a fun palette, and I think that this has such an interesting twist to it, and there's just so many good combinations to be had with just this 9-pan palette. And if you haven't tried Nomad Cosmetics, I would definitely recommend you to start right here. I do have a code with them as well. They have so many good palettes, but I feel like this one would appeal to people who love colors, to people who love neutrals, to like beginners, because you can just put 1 matte in a crease and a duochrome on the lid and you will be all done. Such a beautiful palette. I think this palette is the newest palette that I'm gonna mention here, and this is the Rogue palette by Fantasy Cosmetica. I've only had this in my collection for like 2 weeks or something, and this is what the palette looks like. This is again also a 9-pan palette, and it's a little bit similar to the Lure palette, but this one has 5 mattes and 4 shimmers instead of vice versa. I do prefer a lot of mattes, but this one is leaning way more cool tone. It's almost like a grungy cool tone palette, and you have 4 multichromes and you have 5 mattes, and it goes really light. This one works in the inner corner for me, and it goes to, is it a black? I think it is a black, and then you have some mattes. You can go in the purple direction, you can go like more tealy blue. I did a look with these 3 shades here. Oh, so pretty. I loved the look. And you also can go a little bit more grungy green. This is a purple to gold, super pretty. It's just really fun palette and really different. And same here, this is just so easy. Everything goes with each other. You can just put any matte in the crease and any shimmer on the lid, and it's just gonna look super fun. And it just has a different undertone to it that just makes it super interesting. Oh my god, I'm just looking at the palettes that I have left. I'm just like, oh, this is so exciting. I was first not gonna mention this palette because I thought it had been discontinued, but I found it on the site, so I don't think it's been discontinued. I'm super excited about that. This is the Scooby-Doo collab that Glamlight did, and this is the green and blue palette, and I love this color story. This is such a fun color story. 5 metallics, very sparkly, glimmery, high intensity metallics, and then you have 5 mattes, 2 really dark, well this is really dark as well, and 2 midtones. No inner corner highlight in this one for me. This is a 10 pan palette. Again, I can reach into something else. I like that they have like corresponding like this. You can do again just something in the crease and something on the lid, and you can be out the door. This is a different undertone. I mean, this is a color lovers palette. I think it's going to be really hard to convince someone that only wears neutrals to think that this is a good idea. But if you love colors, I really think that there's a lot of really beautiful, and I cannot explain how beautiful and glimmery these metallics are, but there's just really nice undertones in here, and I'm really loving like this green quad here just brings something new and different, and I love how these look, and I've had so much fun with these. Again, these also ranked very high in last year's ranking. You just think it is a different color story for a colorful palette, and I feel like sometimes when brands do colorful palettes, they're like rainbow palette, and it's like, I've already said this, I've said this so many years on my channel, the rainbow has already been curated for you. You putting a rainbow in a palette, good for you. Nature told you how to do that. But when brands come up with more innovative color stories like this with like interesting undertones, that's when you get me to look twice. And it's the same with the Aura palette from Ace Beauté. I do have a code with Ace Beauté and also with Glamlight. This is such a cool palette because first when I looked at this, I'm like, oh, it's a purple palette that has both warm tones and cool tones. I like that because you can go really warm. This is a red, but if you mix it with some of the purples, you can go really berry, and you have this warmer purple here, and then you have this cooler purple with the gold duochrome. I was like, oh, it's like a cool and a warm tone purple palette. I like it. But it's almost like you didn't realize that there is a full grungy green moment over here as well. And this one, even though this is a 12 pan, right? Yeah, this is a 12 pan. Even though it's only a 12 pan, there's like 3 different color stories, or maybe even 4 different color stories you can get in this one. Cool tone purple, more berry red, warm purples, the grungy greens, and then like just straight up neutrals. And it's just such a smart palette. I really like how they did this one, and I love the Ace Beauté formula. I love the formulas of all of these palettes that I showed you here. I didn't bring you any duds. It's like, I didn't bring you and show you a bad palette just because I love the color story. No, all of these palettes are palettes that ranked really high in my rankings, palettes that I really enjoy and really recommend. Speaking of rainbow palettes, I think that this is an interesting way of doing a rainbow palette. This is the Nomad Cosmetics Monteverde Cloud Forest palette, and I do think I have a code. Actually, these are some of my favorite brands. Go me, check the description box for more info. This is such a fun way of doing a rainbow palette because this is a rainbow palette and a green palette mixed together. The way that this palette is set up, you might open this and be like, oh, that's so jumbo, but the way that they made this palette, because they have visited this, I think this is a national park, right? I'm fairly sure that they have visited, yes, designed on location, trekking in the Monteverde Cloud Forest. So this one is designed to look like greenery with all the exotic birds and butterflies and flowers peeking through the greenery. And this is why it's designed like this. I love something that has a good background story, and this one really does. So this is a neon rainbow palette. You see that? With a green, like a monochromatic green palette mixed in. So this is a half green monochromatic palette, half neon rainbow palette. Love it. Love this color story. Love that it's very matte heavy. If you're like me and you love matte shadows, ooh, this palette might be for you. This is my favorite palette still from Nomad Cosmetics, and I've tried basically everything that they have released. I think this is beautiful. This is my favorite. I've had a lot of fun with this one, and I've also reached into this one when I'm doing like looks outside of YouTube, and I've been like, oh, I want to have something really purple, oh, I want to have something really yellow, oh, I want to have something like this. Has been the palette for that. So I really like this one, and I like the different take on how can we elevate and make a rainbow theme a little different. you can do that with this really cool background story with the rainforest. And last palette that I'm gonna mention is a 6-pan palette. I love me a good 6-pan, but it's really hard to get a 6-pan right because everything in a 6-pan needs to work together. All the shades need to work with each other, and it also needs to be able to give you more than just one look. A good 6-pan palette is either the most perfect monochromatic story you've ever seen in your life, or a color story like this one. This is the Trick Roar Treat by Sugar Drizzle. Look at the little dinosaur. This is a 6-pan that gives you multiple color stories and multiple different options, but still only 6 shadows. 3 mattes and 3 like duochrome multichromes. This is like one of those green, purple, pale gold. You have a bronze red, and then you have like this is a slight like bronze with a slight green duochrome. This is like a more subtle green duochrome. If you love neutrals and you want to have like just an everyday look, I did a look with these 3 shades. You get a muted, sexy, neutral look. These two go together. These two go together. These two go together. Any of these shimmers will work with any of these shades. They really made a cool palette where you have options with only 6 shades, and I think she did such a good job with this palette, and I cannot wait to see if she does more 6-pan palettes in the future, because I would love to have more smart color stories like this in a 6-pan. I really enjoy this. I think this is a great palette. And those were the palettes. Please let me know down below. What are some of the more interesting and elevated and exciting color stories that you have in your collection? I mean, I know for myself, I've had the absolute pleasure of designing 2 eyeshadow palettes with 2 of my favorite brands on the market. And I was given free reins to do basically whatever I wanted, and I know what I wanted was like, I want to create something that is different and fun and creative, but still not too difficult, because I don't want people to open my palette to be like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. So it's that like line between creative and fun, but still like somewhat approachable. And I just think that there are so many brands on the market that do really fun palettes, and sometimes we tend to forget that when we look at palettes. We're like, this is just redundant and repetitive and just, we've seen this before. Okay, I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe, check the description box for more info, and I will see you again really soon in a new video. Bye!